so our RAM is cleared, and so we're going to put in the X and the Y data, all right? And remember, you should have written it yesterday, but stat enter, kind of going over these, especially for Preet, because he wasn't here yesterday. So stat enter is where we go to put in our data, okay? So stat enter, and you should all see list 1, list 2. If you don't, tell me, I'll come fix it real quick. It's an easy fix, but you have to have L1, L2. That's where you put your X's and your Y's. Let me know. Don't wait till the end and you're just sitting there. Tell me if something's wrong, okay? So 0, enter, 10, enter, and so on. And always hit enter after the last one. That's a common mistake, okay? You have to hit enter for it to go in the brain of your calculator. Everybody should be typing this, not just watching or holding us back. Oh, and Eli, you need this paper too, right? You weren't here yesterday? Oh, was it the day before or something? Okay. All right, so make sure you hit enter after the last one, okay? And then we go to turn our stat plot on, okay? So that's the second step, activate the scatter plot. I'm just trying to give Devontae a chance to catch up because he had a problem with it. So we're going to go to second. If you don't know where it is, just like the next button's watch my finger. Second, and then stat plot. It's in blue. That's why you had to hit second, right? And notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going through the steps again here. 2, 3, and all of those we don't care about. All we care about is 1, and it says the plot is off. We want it to be on. So all we have to do is hit enter. It'll take us into the menu for 1. And all we care about on this page is turning it on. So the off is highlighted, but on is blinking. If you just hit enter, it highlights on. That's it. That's all you had to do. Basically, just hit enter. Okay? And you can check it. You don't have to go anywhere to like make it go. It's done. But if you wanted to go back to StatPlot, you can see it's on now. Okay? Now, we're going to hit zoom. No? Yes. Zoom. And then we want the one that says zoom stat. Okay? You can either scroll to it or just hit it. Does anybody remember the number? 9. 9. Yeah, that's the other menu. So 9. And it plots them for us. There they are. Okay? So I didn't even read this. The table shows the height in inches of a transmission fluid that is being drained from a large storage tank. X is our time in seconds. Y is our height in inches. So, this fluid is in there, and as time goes by, it's going down. Okay? So it says to model the data with a quadratic function. Yesterday we did linear. And this looks like the beginning of a problem, right? So I'm going to go stat again. Okay, so if you want to write that on there, great. Stat, and then that says calc. So stat again, where we started. Remember, we hit enter here to put it in our list. We're going to go across the top to calc. So I'm just going to arrow to calc. And this is where we decide, are we doing a line, a quadratic, a cubic, a quartic? We're going to do all of them today at some point. And then it told us quadratic, so in this case, it's going to be number 5. You can either arrow to it and hit enter, or just hit number 5. It'll go right to it. And this is the screen. Remember, some of you were missing yesterday. You should all have it now. And what we're going to do is go down to this item right here. And I don't remember if I told you guys to write this, because this is the one step at first. This takes the longest to remember what to put. So if you didn't write this yesterday, please do. And then I'll show you where they are. What this is doing, it says store regression equation. yes or no and where you want it. So yes, we want the calculator to store the equation. Even though we don't know it yet, it knows it. Okay, it's about to give us the equation. Before it gives it to us, do you want me to store it for you? That's what it's asking. And we want it to, because we're going to have to make a prediction later. If it was just write the equation of this data, you can skip this step. It'll give us the equation. Okay, and some of you saw that yesterday when you didn't have the screen. You could still see the equation. But we want to store it in Y1. Okay, so we hit alpha, which is the green button, alpha. Trace is right up here, right below calc. And then you hit, see, it pops up Y1, Y2, all that. You hit enter. And it should say Y1 there. And what that is, guys, remember when we learned how to graph on here? We were putting in like different functions and stuff. We started at Y equals and we typed it in. What it just did is it put our equation in the Y equals for us. It's sitting there waiting for us. You can go and look at it if you want to in a minute. Enter, enter until you get your equation. Now, these are scary looking, but they're not scary for real. They're just lots of decimals. And notice there's 3 numbers here. It even says at the top, quadratic. And it gives you the formula for the quadratic, and then it gives you the A, the B, and the C value. So all I'm going to do is plug those values into the equation. And let's go to 3 decimal places. So y hat equals 0.008 x to the second minus 2.082 x. We have to know how to round correctly, guys. Do you have the same A value as I do? You're rounding, remember? We're rounding. The 7 tells the 7 to go up to an 8. So we're rounding to 3 decimal places. The 4th digit tells the 3rd digit what to do. So the 7 is the boss of the 7, and the 7 tells the 7 to go up to an 8. So that's where it got that. Okay? And we rounded the whole way down. Now, so there's my equation. Let's see what it looks like. Hit graph now and see what it does. Okay. I don't have this. So now that it has the equation, it's showing it go right through those points, okay? Now, the next question is, use the model to estimate the height of the transmission tank fluid in the tank at 35 seconds, okay? So this is why we saved it in Y equals. So if you look, if I hit Y equals, it's there. Remember we told it to save it there? It's sitting there for us. It'll do a lot of things for us, and you'll see that in the next 2 questions. So we didn't have to type it in there. It's just there for us, okay? And now I'm going to go to the table to find when X is 35, what is Y? So when I go to the table, second table, so that's the last thing on here. Remember, we didn't like her method of doing it. We used the table. So write that there, pre. Okay, so second table. And what you get is this beautiful XY chart of all the numbers that you could ever want for X. Let's pretend, though, we didn't feel like scrolling all the way to 35. Because what if it was 335? What if it was 1,035? Would we want to sit here and scroll? Of course not. So what you can do is change the table set, okay? So guys, look, so I want to practice this. Even though you could easily scroll to 35, I want to show you this cool feature. So above all your buttons up here, there's a window, and above it, it says table set. It should make sense. This is a table. We're going to set it up basically with that button. It's blue, so I'm going to hit second table. So what it says, what it tells us now by default, when we clear our RAM, it goes back to normal. That's another reason to change it, because you don't know what settings somebody has changed in here. It's telling us that it started at 0. What would be a really cool number to start with on this problem? 35, right? But I'm not going to. I'm going to pretend I didn't know that. That's one method. Another thing I could do is, this next one, it says change in the table. That's what you count by. Do you want to count by 1.2s? Do you want to count by 1, which is what it's set to? Or maybe you want to count by 5s. If the number was in the hundreds, I might, change, depending on what it was asking for, I would kind of figure out the best way to do that. All right, so I'm going to just change it to count by 5. So when you go back to the table, you'll see your x values are now counting by 5s. All right, and then you can easily find 35. Not that you couldn't before either, right? But it's just a fun thing to know how to do. So 59.723 inches. Right? At 35 seconds, that's how tall it'll be. How much fluid. All right? All right, last one for this is new. We did not do one of these yesterday, so let's talk about this. How long will it take to drain the tank? Okay? So it's asking us for time, right? How much time will it take? So that's our x value, right? Time is x. Will it take to drain the storage tank? This must be my y. What would the y equal if the tank is drained? 0, right? So basically what I want to know is when y is 0, what is x, right? That's what that question is asking. Another question you'll see is like when the ball was on the ground, how much time did it take for the ball to hit the ground or something. So think about 0 as like when you empty a tank or where the ground is. That's a y equals 0, okay? Now, how do we find that? Well, I can tell you won't find it in your table, all right? It's not going to work like that, especially with all these decimals. So I want to ask you guys, think. We've already done what we're about to do. What do we know about any number that the y value is 0? This is a really, really, really special type of value that we use in this class in all algebras. Yes, right, Sid. This is an x-intercept, right? Any point on the x-axis has a y of 0. So really, we want the 0 of this graph. So let me go back to the graph. The 0 is where the graph hits the x-axis, right? I don't see it. I need to be able to see it, and then we'll be able to do our calculate the 0. Remember left bound, right bound, guess? We're going to be using that. But you can't use that function if you can't see the 0. How do you go to the left and the right of it if it's not on your screen? So when I look at the graph, I wish I could shift the graph to the right a little bit so I can see where it's hitting and see below the x-axis. Because remember, Zoom Trig gives you just quadrant 1 because quadrant 1 is the real data, okay? Real life data. We don't have negative money, negative time, all that stuff. But for a real world problem, we need to answer this question. Okay, or for algebra, we need to answer the question. So we're going to go, we've done this before too, but this is our window, right? So if you go to window, this is where you can change what you're counting by. Understand what that language is, guys. X min and X max, X scale, okay? Min and max. So on the x-axis, right, the numbers that go that direction are the max. So how far to the right do you want to go? How far to the left? That's your x min. And what the scale is what you're counting by. So again, if we were like in the hundreds, you might want to count by 20s or 10s or something so you can get over to that piece and not have it be so spread out. So I don't, and I'll have students say, well, how do I know what number? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. You can't wait till we're done with the notes? I mean, if you need to, go, but you're going to miss this new part of the problem. So I'll say, I don't know. I don't know where it hits. That's what we're trying to find, right? We don't know what X is. So you put something in there, and you can always go back and change it. So, like, I just picked 120. Maybe 100 would be fine. Maybe I need to go up to 180. I don't know. I'm picking a number for it to do. So let's just go back and see that. Right, do I see now? Okay, I do see it hitting the x-axis, but I can't see below. So in my window, I can change my y what? Min or max? Min. I want it to go down. How far? I don't know. Pick something. You can always change it if you still can't see, but right now it's only going to positive 10. So maybe do negative 15. I don't know. I'm just picking a number. I'm kind of making a guess. Was that good enough? Sure, looks good to me, right? I can see the 0. So now I'm going to calculate the 0. So I'm going to hit second calc. Which number do I want? 2, right? The 0, so 2, number 2. And you can arrow or just hit it. And remember, it asks you left bound, right bound. So to maneuver around this graph, we use our right and left arrows. So you can see it blinking. So you can hit left bound whenever you want, okay? As long as we are to the left of the point, which we are, in all these points, as I'm moving, I could hit enter on any of them, okay? Any point to the left is fine. So I'm just going to stop here and hit enter, okay? Now it's asking for right boundary. So I'm going to arrow till I am below the x-axis, which is to the right of the point. And even though I can't really see it, how do I know automatically I'm below the y or the x-axis? It's because my y value is negative. So I know, who cares where this is, write something down negative. I'm to the right now because y is negative. Hit enter. Do we want them to guess? Yes. And remember, you're going to get decimals. They're not going to be nice, pretty numbers. So we have a y of 0, which is what we wanted, right? And there's your x value. And let's just round it to whole minutes, because that's how we would answer that question. How many seconds did it take to drain? 80, approximately, that's the symbol, 88 seconds. Okay? Question before we do our last one? Yeah. What to round to? Well, I would tell you on a test what to round to. So if this was a homework problem and I didn't give you any instruction, you could do like this. You could have rounded it to something. There's no like exact answer for me to give you on that, except I know on the AP exam they favor 3 decimal points. So that's why I do a lot of these. I say to 3 decimal points. But will you see me round to 2 or 1 or a whole number? Yes. But I'm really pretty fair on a test. I'll tell you everything, okay? Okay, but so you have to know how to round. All right, guys, you have to know how to round. What page is this one on? You guys tell me when you get to it. Is it 102? Okay, so it's just the next page, I guess. All right, one last example. This is really great because you're going to get to practice putting these steps in again right now. What should we start out by doing, though? Clear that RAM. Clear your RAM. Second plus 712. Because we changed the table, we changed the window, that might mess with our new problem. So I like to start just clean. All right, so we'll start out by plugging this data in, and then we'll talk about what we do next. Okay, so go to Stat, Enter. You should have your L1, L2. Start typing. All right. Now look ahead at what they're asking us for. They want us to find the linear model, the quadratic model, and the cubic model. All 3 of them. So I'll show you how. We don't have to type it in every time, okay? So don't get ahead of me, because last period some people erased everything and then started again, and you don't have to when they move to quadratic. So let's just start with linear. So we're going to turn our stat plot on. So second stat plot. It's off. I want to turn it on. It's now on. All right? Then where do I go? Zoom. I want zoom stat. I know it's number 9. I'm just going to hit 9. And there's my points. Okay? Now, we go to Stat again, back to where we started, over to Calc, and we want linear, number 4. Remember, we want to store the equation. I looked ahead, there is a prediction phase later on, but I'll get to that. So let's just, even if we didn't have to do this, let's just go ahead and put it in there to practice. Alpha, trace, enter. Alpha, trace, enter. And then just keep hitting enter till you get to your screen. So there's our slope and our y-intercept, and we'll just plug it right in. Graph it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, we saw there's our scatter plot, our dot plot, and then that is the equation that it came up with. Okay? And it kind of looks like the one we did yesterday by hand. If you remember where there were some data points above and below, we drew a line of best fit in between. Okay? So just kind of remember that, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, we have to find a quadratic model. You don't need to clear your RAM. Okay? We are using the same data. That's still in the list. Okay? That's still in stat enter. It's still there. Okay? Our stat plot is still on. We're still in the right zoom. The only thing we want different is on that one screen, instead of using 4, we're going to use 5, which is quadratic. So we're going to go to Stat, Calc, and go to number 5, because we're going to do the quadratic model now. So 5, and then let's store the equation. Alpha, trace, enter. And then keep hitting enter till you get to the equation, and go ahead and round to 3 decimal places. Let's do. Graph. Ooh, that doesn't look good at all. Those points don't look anything like a parabola. Okay. Last one, cubic. Go to Stat again, over to Calc, and this time we're going to pick number 6, cubic. Let's store it. Alpha, trace, enter. Keep hitting enter till you get your A, B, C, D in this case. Be really careful with your rounding. I definitely take points off for incorrect rounding. So as you work through homework, don't just copy my answers. Make sure you know that you know, especially with the rounding, make sure you have the same answer as I, because it would be point off for rounding on a test. Hit graph, and let's see what this one looks like. Ooh, this one's exciting. This one looks really good, because if you look ahead, part D is which model appears to be the best fit data. We said the line was kind of okay, because remember with a line, you don't have to hit all the points. You kind of want some in the below, some above. So if there was no cubic model, between the two of those, I would have picked linear. But this is perfect. It actually hits all the points. So which model is best? We would write the cubic model. Why? It best fits the data. Okay, our data is our points on there. It like hit every single point. So if you want to see what does the actual curvy graph look like in comparison to your points. And so this would be a cubic. And it says to use your best fit model, which we already have in here, right? The cubic is saved in here. Luckily, that was the one. We don't have to go back. The cubic is already in here. If you're not sure, hit y equals, And you could see that that's your cubic equation. See, x to the third? That's what's saved in here. So I can just go where to do my prediction? Where do I go? The table, right? Like say, second table, and I want 35. So you can either scroll all the way down, you can change your table set if you want to. Yep, sorry. Oh, 25? Okay, so where 25 is, and you should see 3.86. Okay? Good? And let me get you set up on your homework, and then if you have any lingering questions, call me over, and I will happily explain something to you. We're in practice set 2. This is A25. And I'm going to kind of help you get set up because there's something we need to talk about in these problems. So everybody look at number 10. Look at number 10. It says year and money in billions. So if you remember yesterday, we said we're not going to use the year. We're going to use a different value like 1 or something. If I tell you what to use, so this is your x value, this is your y. For time, in this case, let's use t is 0. In other words, you're going to use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, for your x values, and then these are your y values, okay? And you're going to do all your, this is a quartic, for some reason she didn't tell you, so that you're going to go all the way to a quartic on that screen. We've done linear, we've done quadratic, we've done cubic. Quartic is an x to the 4th, so you're going to do that, okay? And then use the equation to estimate projected spending for 2018. So this keeps going, right? And then to 2018. So 15, 16, 17, 18. That's 4 more, so that's 8, right? So here you're going to find when 8 is our x value, what is y, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, but stay with me. One more thing I have to tell you. Because it really doesn't matter if you start with 0 or 1. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes, like today, I'm telling you what to use because I want you to see the difference. But don't ignore me right here. I really need you guys to listen. So if I'm going to start with 1 instead of 0, look what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And these are linear, by the way. And let me just tell you what's going on in this chart. X values, Y values for population, X values, Y values for drivers. So it's like a double X, it's an X, Y, Y chart. So there's one set of data, and then X's and Y's is your other set of data, okay? So that you're going to get 2 of them there. But what happens, look, in that last question for 2018, so from 2013, 18, 14, 15, 16, that's 5 years. So I would add 5 to 4. That would be 9. Okay? So be careful